Awesome. So this is the final episode on mentorship.
Yes.
And this time around, we're going to focus on something which sounds very common, but I think talking about it and making it a very um, simple concept is what's going to help us continue to develop our mentorship relationships and even initiate them. It's this idea of communication. Communication. I think there's no successful relationship that has been run on zero communication or poor communication. That's why we think communication within the context of mentorship is very important. And on on some of the topics that we're going to touch on, I think in the bridge program we go deeper into ways and practices, but for the sake of this particular conversation, we're going to talk about the presentation aspect, the language. We're going to talk about frequency, medium, and place. Um, and the only person that I think I've interacted with over the past couple of years who does well on this particular topic in terms of presentation and language is TK. Uh,
Yeah.
how have you gone about developing these skills, and how do you do it?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I feel like this is a process, right? I think that is very important to just see out there that
Mm,
these cues I continuous, bro. Even up to now, I'm still working on them, right?
mm,
But I feel like let's talk about the presentation, right? Presentation is goes beyond what you wear, right?
mm,
Or like how you look from the outside, but it also goes deeper than how people perceive you, right? And right now we have a very in the we have a very complex sort of like subject when we're talking about presentation. This subject of digital identity, right? We're now living in a world where it's more digital than ever before, and this has never been more true than the year that we have just come from 2020 and even going 2021, right? So for me, as I sort of like grew my portfolio and I grew my horizons, right, I understood that this concept of digital identity is very important because when you are digital sort of like breaks barriers, right? You become sort of like a global citizen overnight when you just when you create that Facebook account, when you create that
everyone can look for you.
yeah, you become just a global citizen, right?
Mm,
So for me, I have invested my identity or my presentation on two things, right?
mm.
Substance and quality, right? So let's talk about quality, right? Quality is like,
I love where this is going.
you know, the picture that you put even on social media as part of digital identity should attract people. Like people should just be attracted to talk to you just from that picture, right? So that quality, and also the substance part of it is to do about it. They are sort of like related, sort of like in between, sort of like a subset concept. What you're gonna speak, right? Because we're talking about communication, right?
Mm,
And what you're gonna speak is also part of the presentation, right? What you speak, what you write, right? Even your activity, right? Some people may, they may take those things, lightly, like the way you're gonna comment on someone post, right? All of those form part of their presentation in digital identity. That is very important in mentorship, right? I'll tell you a story, right?
mm,
So I applied for a job, right? So part of the things what they do, like the recruiters,
mm,
they have this resume, right? They look at the resume and say, okay, we like this person,
mm.
right?
Yep.
But they're also taught to, to dig deeper, right? So they may just search you on a simple Google search, right? And nowadays it's like all the information we use is centralized, right? A simple Google search can expose you, right?
Yeah.
It'll show your Facebook, it'll show everything, right?
Everything comes
So
out. 10,000 results on Takudzwa
yeah.
Caitano. Yeah.
Or you may end up going to an interview like in a suit and looking all this nice, right? and then you nail the interview, but you may not end up getting the job, not because it didn't look presentable then, but because your digital identity did not look presentable, right? So that is the aspect that we really talk about, right? We really talk about it deeper in the personal branding part and also in the mentorship part, because they are interconnected concepts, right? That's part of the presentation part of it, looking at the digital identity, right? And for me, I've managed to create a portfolio, sort of like a consistent portfolio, right? Or my, whether I go on my Facebook, when I go on my Instagram, there's a consistent, right? And that consistent is detected not because of maybe the content, but because of the theme, right? So it's important for you to have a theme, right? How are you going to present yourself to the world? That's the point of a theme, right? So I think that's the presentation part. And then there's the language part, right? The language is very important, especially when you are looking for mentors, or when you are starting a relationship, or when you're nurturing them, right? You have to understand the context of that relationship first, right? So, for example, in a professional relationship, right, there is a language that you have to use. Right? You can not say, "Hey," to a CEO of
Yo.
a company, or like, "Hey," and all that stuff, right? Or what you doing, like WUD, this shortcut and all those things that people use, right? Then people won't take you seriously, right?
True.
So it's about understanding the context of the relationship and then being adaptable to that context, right? Adapt your language in terms of the context. In a more personal, then you look for, things that are simple language that is more intimate, In a professional, then you use technical language, that makes you like seriously in the hands of your mentor and your relationship, right? And then there's this very important aspect that I've noticed as a mentor for this as a bridge, and even in my relationships, right? The issue of a victim language, right? So people, especially where I come from in Zimbabwe, because of the hardships or because of the narration behind, things are hard, So people go there with sort of like this victim language that we are suffering.
Yeah, things are hard,
And
we
you're
can't,
like, I
yeah.
need help, right? I want to tell you one thing, right? No one wants problems in this
Yes.
world. That's one. So, like, if you come and present me another problem, if I want to help you, right, I won't be more open to the relationship because you are a problem, right? You're
Yes.
not like a beneficial, right? We as humans, we are rational and we are built with a beneficial factor. Like, we give, then we receive, right? So if a relationship becomes one way, it's no longer mutual, it's not my relationship, right? The reason why it's called a relationship is because of that element of giving, right? So if and receiving. So if we come with a victim language, with a problem, right? Your mentor or someone, your peer mentor, will not be more receptive to you, right? So that the importance of a language is very important, right? And it's also part of that credibility building process, right? Because your first impression, right? That's part, your presentation in your language are your first impression, right? And they sort of like build your credibility. So
Yes.
make sure that you understand the context of the relationship, right? Not to victim language. Try to sort of like be more intentional and more of like creating what you call a mutual beneficial relationship for both parties, rather than uh, actually going presenting yourself as a problem, right? And within our program, we really deep dig in how you can actually, it's okay to ask, but how can you sort of like create a message, not to sound a victim or a problematic, but rather in a more diplomatic way of asking, right?
You
So,
need a leadership aspect instead of coming and saying,
yeah,
oh, I don't have this amount of money, I
exactly.
am suffering, this, my dog died, or like
Yeah,
come and say, I am faced with a financial challenge and I've taken XYZ steps
X, Y, Z.
to
Yeah,
achieve this particular goal, and I've been successful to this extent, but I've not been successful to
yeah,
this particular extent, and I believe that there's an opportunity there. Then people
yeah,
are like, okay, I can work with
exactly.
this person.
And that is very crucial because one concept that I also want to introduce of a relationship is that a relationship is not only a person to person, right? It can be between you and your college, right?
Yes.
you and the company working for, right? That is the necessary part of it, right? A school can be an entity where it mentors you, right? That's a relationship, right? So, for example, when maybe you are asking maybe for a scholarship or what, right? Don't use the victim language, right? Try to show, as you say, leadership, right? Like I'm faced with some financial situations. These are the steps that I took, right? I carry, for example, I launched a crowdfunding campaign, right? I asked for funders and all right, but this is the amount that I raised. This is the amount that the schools or whoever is leadership is willing to help you because he knows that you have explored 1, 2, 3 situation, right? So that is what we teach our mentors in the sustainability program, right? Don't use this victim language. Try to use sort of like this leadership, diplomatic language, right?
And
Which
there's an
shows,
art to it. There's an art.
yeah, there's an art to it. Like you need to practice it. Actually, you need actually to learn it, you know. So yeah, that's the aspect on language and presentation. I feel like Farai, you have had more experience on the other three aspects of plays, frequency, and medium.
It's interesting that you brought up this concept of a corporation or an institution is a person.
Yes.
You know, the word corporation is derived from Latin for corpus, which
Yes.
means body.
Yeah.
And organizations are actual persons, they are legal individuals.
Yes.
And those companies or organizations have got values
Yes.
and they've got a personality and they've got a culture. So you
Yes.
need to understand what those values are at that particular level and how it intersects. Well, sometimes we don't get what we want out of a relationship because we are looking and asking for it from the wrong people.
Yes.
So always being able to be aware about not only yourself but also the institution and the people that you're asking or interacting with, and even the mentors that you work with. I think it's very important, which I think comes to this idea of medium, frequency, and place. uh,
Yes.
in a world where people can communicate on various platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it's always to there's the personal aspects and the LinkedIn, which is more of like the professional aspects. I don't think you're going to text your mother about something that you couldn't buy at the grocery store on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that, right? You're either going to text her or send a WhatsApp or actually call her. Same thing applies with your mentors. There are stages in a relationship where your relationship might be very cordial and you might be, first of all, you might be speaking on or communicating via email, right? So you make sure that again you use email language and you put in place the email etiquette. You don't just start by saying, so I was thinking about XYZ,
Yeah.
dear so and so,
Yeah.
greetings. You greet them, you talk about why, you give them background, figure out, are you well, are you good, have you got into the new year healthy and safe? This is what my story is. If you just started, you're like, I want this, that, people are going to shut down before they even go, because remember, these people have got hundreds of emails coming in every day.
Yes.
Why should they give time to your email? So it starts with even like the header, right? And I do encourage people most of the times when they're in a mentorship relationship to use bullet points, right?
Yes. Yes.
After you have a call with your mentor, you've discussed certain things, send a thank you email saying, thank you so much for the time you've created to have this conversation. Really appreciate it. This is what we took away from the conversation. Next time when we're going to talk, we're going to pick it up from here in the next 4 weeks. I'll talk to your PA or to your chief of staff and find time for this. That is part of the process. You don't just say, thank you, bye-bye, and then you disappear, only to re-emerge 3 months later and say, oh, I'm back and I have a call. Because we are used to this last minute thing. Your mentor is not going to be in a position to give you time if you are not premeditating and planning ahead of time when you want to to speak to them and have a conversation with them. So always plan. And I think we've touched about this particular topic earlier
Yeah.
on. And I think when it comes to the idea of place, right? If you're at a gala or you're in a workspace, there are certain conversations that you can't have. You can't talk about your salary raise in the corridor, you
Yeah.
know, and be like, oh, as you know, I've been working hard, and this is literally on during tea time, and I'm hoping that my salary can be increased or my remuneration can be revised. That's not a conversation to have there. So
Yeah.
you're not going to get the best outcome because you've not created the best place and the best environment scenario to have the crucial conversations. So you need to have a spectrum of these things and realize, okay, is this a nice place to talk about this? Is this a good place? If it's at a big celebration party, don't go there talking about something that is out of theme,
Yeah.
because it falls on deaf ears, because I'm
Yes.
trying to enjoy myself and you're trying to like text all these kind of things. So it's timing is also very important, right? If it's on a
Yeah.
Sunday, or sometimes your mentee might send a text on Christmas Day and say, oh, can you please look at my recommendation? I'm on holiday.
Yeah.
It's and I'm talking about something that actually happened,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm on holiday and your deadline is on the 26th of December at 12 a.m. at 12 p.m. and you expect me to look through your essays and everything on Christmas Day. That shows lack of planning and
Yes.
lack of seriousness and lack of commitment, which then becomes a huge, challenge. And these are things that you learn. And I think there are also mistakes that I've personally uh made, right? And even when you go out for a dinner date or a lunch date, right? If you're having a two-course meal or three-course meal, you don't jump straight into that particular conversation, you know, before you are at a later stage of the meal, right?
Yes.
And I've made these mistakes before. So these are things that you need to learn, because it's like coming up with your news and your ideas. It's like sowing seeds. If you sow your seeds on a rock, they're not gonna, land and grow. So you always need to be assessing and saying, is it fertile enough for my idea to be heard?
Yeah.
Then, you shoot your idea. And that's, I think, how communication works with mentors. It still has to be intentional, strategic. And it might sound like it's a lot of work, but the
Hello.
more you get into the mood of it, the more it becomes very personal and second nature. Because at a certain point, you also then become a mentor to mentees and you get to teach them, and then it happens that way. And I think these are some of the things we go into depth with when we talk to our scholars at the Bridge
Yeah.
program.
I feel like after we've established like, the whole lessons about mentorship and also on self leadership and all, I feel like the importance of creating frameworks on everything is actually important. Like when we
Yeah.
are talking about self leadership, we're talking about the VIPs, right?
Mm.
And on communication, we just have another framework, whereby there's this idea of place and timing, medium,
Frequency.
frequency, presentation, and language, right?
Mm.
So I feel like having that framework, I think, kind of like organizes everything, right? And makes sort of like when you approach these things, you have somewhere to start, right? And I feel like most students or peers don't have somewhere to start, right?
Yeah.
And I feel
We're all
like
trying
that's
to figure out,
a bridge, right? We give you those tools, that platform to start,
yes.
because that is the most important thing, right? When you don't have that full knowledge or that foundation or that base, right? You can never then go on to the next level. So I feel like that is the work that we do at such a bridge, and that is something I'm really passionate about, because this is not things you are taught at school, right? I
Yes.
in my 6 years of my school, I was never taught this, right? Even
Mm.
in college, you have to book a career appointment in the career office, which
Yeah.
is,
It's
you
not
know,
co-curricular. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I feel like this is it's as a bridge we really are closing that gap and that need that our students need, especially from where we come from, Africa,
Yeah.
and this is relevant even global. I mean, Stanford right now, but
Yes.
like, I'm I'm not thought about things. You actually have to book a career office
Yeah.
appointment, or maybe sometimes you don't have the time because the curriculum just packed. So I feel like these are very valuable lessons to take.
And they're super universal because I went to the African Leadership University with
Yes,
you know 39 African countries represented on campus, and still we
yeah,
have the same conversations. Now at the School of Business at Edinburgh, we still have student development team that works
yeah,
and gives people access to this information. So with the Bridge program, you're trying to get young people thinking about these things earlier on in their journeys, so that they don't, later on as you go through your career, you're not thinking about, am I writing the right email? You're focusing your energy on, am I creating value? Not,
yes.
am I losing opportunities because I failed to write email in the right language, or I failed to dress up properly for the event, and all this kind of thing. So you're sort of like giving people the tools, and co-creating an experience where they get to learn and develop themselves and figure out what works for them.
Thank you so much. So this is the end of our peer tutoring session on mentorship. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And if you have questions, you can always engage with us through comments. And yeah, thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, Farai.
Thank you so much, TK. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome.
Bye bye.